Yo, let's just set this up. Set this up as well. I think we're a bit better there. Cool. Let me just get a couple more things set up. I think my mic's all right. Yep. Okay. Just making sure my camera's not autofocusing. My connection's dropping and I know exactly why. I've got to get rid of a bunch of tabs and stuff. Haven't been the most organized today, to be honest. Right. Cool, bear with me just a moment. I'm going to check the chat as well. Grab some tea as well. Okay. Right, let's go and check. Cool. Right, we'll give people a sec to roll in whilst I set things up, and get rid of some tabs so that we can get a better connection as well. That would be ideal. Got like a bunch of stuff I don't need. Right, let's drag you over here. Right, I'm gonna get rid of that. Cool, we're all good. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna close it all down. Right. Cool. Damn, this is a good tea. That is good. Wow. Okay. Drinking chai tea, by the way, for anyone that might be curious. Okay, updates have sent in the Discord. That's all good. Cool. So where to even start? You know, we'll start by having a look at the what things are looking like right now on the development branch. So if I just jump over to DE branch, go and have a look at our preview deployment. So yeah, the last deployment was yesterday. What branch is that on? I feel like that was on the develop branch, but I don't know. So I think it's pretty much the same. Okay, yeah, we haven't got the newest changes yet, so that's what we'll be looking at today. Well, just going over them really. Yeah, today's kind of just more of like an update. This is what I've been doing, kind of thing. So yeah, for the most part, just been sort of working away on the about page. So we can see in the design here. So I've just sort of created the desktop and the mobile sort of layout for the about page. So just got a couple of sections that just say a bit about me and what I've been up to, interests, that kind of thing. Then kind of moves on to the tools I'm using, and then a little get in touch section at the end. This, I suppose this is more of like you can look at this as like the MVP version of what I want this page to be. This top section's fine. That's like all good. I'm kind of happy with that. And the tools bit's fine as well. It's just the contact bit, or this get in touch bit, I was hoping to sort of have a form field and connect it up to a service like email.js or something like that. But for me, you know, I'm not sure if anyone who ever sort of comes across this, if you've been watching previous streams, but I'm wanting to kind of push on a bit more now. So I've had to rethink a couple of things, make a few decisions where I've had to sort of postpone some features and just try and really get this thing done to like a very MVP esque kind of like destination. So the idea is to now actually just sort of still have the functionality there, but have it in its most basic form. So obviously the get in touch thing, how I'd want to actually have it is to have a form, but obviously we can just do that in the form of like an A tag basically that just links to my email. So obviously that will open up like it's just using the mail to on the href, so that will open up like your default email thing if you have that set up. Otherwise it would be like Gmail if you have it configured to that, and it's got all like the target underscore blank, so it will open like in a separate tab still. But that's the idea. It's just little things like that where I don't want to have the full functionality, just finding ways to actually just implement sort of more basic features that enable me to move it a lot quicker. And then once sort of that first, like what I call like the first release, I suppose, which is like when I'm happy with it basically. Like once that's done, then I'll come back. I'll be, I think the first thing I'll probably do is refactor, which will help me to implement the new features easier. Well, actually, I suppose before even refactoring, writing tests, which is what hopefully we'll look at. Just depends on like how quickly we move today. But, right, so that's what the about page is looking like. And then if I open localhost 3000, you can see the actual. So this is the actual like. Yes, this is the actual site now that we're looking at. So we haven't got everything in this section. We're going to add that bit in a minute, but we've got this tools and technologies, and it's got this nice little like hover, turns to each color. It's just a nice touch. It's always a must for any project I'm working on to have like these just nice subtle transitions on icons. I just find it fun. It's just fun for me. And then we've obviously got that get in touch bit, right? So right now we're just trying to get this to look like this, so we just need to add in an extra like section or two. So I need to get the code up. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do this really. Well, let's have a look at the code. So yeah, this is the code for that page. As far as the code, I don't think I've made much differences since the last stream. The only thing is that I've had like a complete rethink about testing. So in the last stream that was like 3 hours long, I think that was the last stream. I went like really into these ideas around testing, like the project card, and because I'm quite new to testing as well. One of the key things that I forgot was, deciding obviously what to test. Well, when deciding what to test is like essentially what would be return of investment. Obviously I'm not creating a product or service here. If anything, it's just a service to myself. It's like a personal site. But to test like the project cards, when I thought about it properly, I thought actually, if I was thinking about this like as a proper product or a service that I was creating, and I was thinking about all the components that are built up to make these features, would the project card be that important? And when I had a proper think about it, I was like, actually no. Hey Lumjacker, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Yeah, so we're just looking here at my portfolio project, which is just this site that I'm building. So I've been working on this for the past couple weeks now. So yeah, in terms of the testing, I thought about it properly and actually realized that, well, with our project cards, there isn't really much value that we would get from tests, just because the data that lives in those cards purely like live in my files already. I'm not calling it from anywhere. Are you building portfolio freelancing? I suppose for both. Yeah. It's more for getting a new job, because I'm kind of applying at the moment, or starting to apply. So that's the main aim with it. But I'm also like open to freelancing as well. So I've kind of got it for that, for like freelance projects, so I can have something to show people as well. Because most of the projects I've done, they need like cleaning up, and they need to sort of they need a good cleaning up, I would say. But my portfolio, like this, is supposed to be like the main kind of thing I would show people. So what I've done, Lumjacker, is that I've been kind of designing it first, and then sort of creating the pages from that in code. So this is obviously the home page that we saw, and then this is what I'm currently working on, which is the about page, and just kind of getting this information onto here, basically. So we've almost got it looking how we want to, but there's just a few things we need to add up here, and then hopefully maybe a bit later on in the stream, I'll look at sort of testing some components, and yeah, we'll see if we can get into that. But right now, I'm just trying to get some of that information in. So right now, this is what the structure is looking like, basically, of our about page. So this is obviously our main page component, and essentially we've just got each section as its own component, which is obviously composed of smaller components in some instances. So right now, this might get a bit lengthy, but for now it's okay. I might need to split off at some point, or I might not. I think it should be fine, to be honest. So I just need to have a look at my Figma files. Where are we at? Yeah, so we changed a couple of things. So background. So what I'm gonna do. Oh, thank you. Well, it's really kind of you to say. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm quite happy with it. I mean, I've spent like a lot of time like really thinking about this, and it's kind of gone through a lot of different stages in terms of looks. But I think I've like managed to settle on something now that I can sort of go forward with, and you know, I don't think it should change too much from here on out. But I'm just trying to keep like a consistent design, really. That's the kind of idea. But what about you, Lumjacker? Do you do like web development? Do you have a portfolio? Have you been building things? Yeah, it'd be cool to learn a bit about you and what you're up to as well. Cool. So keep that as background. So I think what's going to be easier, actually, to be honest, is just to split this up a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That's much easier. And what I'm going to do actually as well. Let me just collapse these actually for a second. That's not the right thing. I think it's that one. That's not the right thing. It's my password manager. Oh, weird. It's like a weird shortcut. Control Shift. No, Control Alt. There's definitely like a shortcut to close this, but I can't remember what the shortcut is to close this thing. Oh well. I'll just have to leave it for now. Should be alright to look at it like that. That should be fine. Right. And then what I'm actually going to do equally is to do the same thing with our web page, just so that, so yeah, we can see this is what it looks like on sort of the more towards a mobile kind of size. We've got our menu and stuff, so we can still navigate. It's going to take a second to navigate. Oh, we're already on about, aren't we? So yeah, you can navigate around, and that still works quite nicely. Cool. So let's just expand that. Go back to Figma. Okay, so we're going to be kind of working through these three different views, basically, like Figma, VS Code, and Chrome as well. So what I really just want to do is basically I want to I'm just trying to think of how I want to do this. Cool. Well, firstly, there's a few changes that I need to copy and paste over here. Okay, so save that, and then just going to duplicate that. And then in here, actually just get this. And then again. Right, and then what we need to do is actually take that and put it here. This will make sense in a minute once we see what things are looking like. We can actually just swap those, so I can bring this now and put this margin here. We need another heading, so I can just duplicate this. This is just literally most of what I do is always just like copying and pasting things, changing a few things here and there. Yeah, I'm actually really lazy, so I'm just going to do that. And then it's also let's find, I know what I can do. I can do this. No, I can't. I can do this though. So let's take that. Oh dear, my bad. Just clicked on the wrong file. Oh, my bad. The page is like overflowing for some reason. Don't know why that's happening. Okay, there we go. And I'm just gonna close that down. Right, I'm gonna paste that there. And gonna just get this text. I don't know why it skids across like that when I go to highlight things, but it happens. It's a thing that happens. Okay, and I need to add some links in here, but I'll do that in a minute. I just want to check that the UI is looking okay. So I've done quite a bit there. Let's make sure it's all looking okay. Cool. Yeah, that looks good. We can just double check it. So we can just kind of A and B it, or what I can even do if I want to is just to like bring this here and have a look, so we can see it kind of side by side. So yeah, there's a few spacing things that need to be done. Or actually, maybe it actually would be nice to have this a bit more spaced out. So sometimes this happens as well, where like I'm coding and actually something I do in the code, I can actually reflect back in the design. I actually realize that, oh, maybe it looks a bit nicer with this spacing. So in the design, I'll kind of go back and fix that up. So like it's going to be this outer box here, which I can't seem to, there we go. So instead of that, I'm saying this looks more of like maybe like that. So now we can see that's closer to what we've got on the left side. And I think that looks maybe a bit better. Kind of just splits things up a bit more and makes it kind of more digestible and easier to read, I think. Yeah, I don't know what you think about that, Lumjacker, but yeah, it works for me. So what I'm going to do is just put that at the end of here. So that's the end of that section. And now we can have a look, and yeah, it looks better, I think, anyway. So we just got to add some links in here, which will just be pretty straightforward. So what I can do here is, so let's just make this full screen for a second, and I'm just gonna get up my data folder. So this data folder is like, this is like the one place in the repository that holds all of the data for our like icons and links and stuff like that. So let's say for like the icons, which I've just labeled tools, because this is the tools I'll be using. Well, I suppose it's not all our icons, it's more of like the tools, so like HTML icons and like React icons and stuff like that. Obviously their main use case is just for the skills section, but like all of them are going to have obviously like a name they're going to need. That's more for accessibility purposes, for like naming, like to have a name for those elements, so they can show up for screen readers to give more context. And then obviously they have the icon, so that's what will actually show up. All of them are going to have a color, and they're going to need an ID because I'm mapping over them in that skills section. So what I've just done is literally just created this, this like JavaScript file that exports objects basically, with each having their own properties. And then I've done the same thing for like things like social links. So they're all going to have an icon. They're all going to have a href, like a link. They're all going to have a name again for accessibility purposes and a color. And so that's kind of like the pattern I'm trying to follow here. So what were we even on? It was links, wasn't it? So for those links, I said YouTube and Twitch, right? So we have those here. So it's just a case of like calling the data from here into this this component basically. So what I can do, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to import them actually. So, and I'm using absolute imports here. So I've got like @ like this or that, so we don't have to be like jumping out folders and stuff like that. It just makes it a lot easier for where you need to copy and paste stuff as well to different files. You don't have to change the where it's been imported from. So I do find it a lot easier. So we've got our like data folder here, and we can go to, I think it's under socials. So we'll see here as I start typing, it's going to come up with YouTube. Same thing with Twitch. And now what I can do is, so Twitch and YouTube. So what I want to do, I'm just wondering if I can do an emit wrap with this. Yes, I think I can. If I just do link, I think we're probably already using link. This is the chakra. Yeah, we are. Cool. And then what I can do is I can actually use that that YouTube object that in this file it's globally available to us. So what I can say is href equals, and then if I reference YouTube and I put dot, then it's going to show us all the properties on the object, and we just want to use the href, right? So it's kind of just as simple as that, but it's not YouTube, is it? It's Twitch. My bad. And then it's just a case of doing the same thing for the YouTube. I just find this a much easier way to if you're going to be having the same links in multiple different places, it just makes sense to have that defined in one place, and then just to reference that off an object like in other files, because like this is still quite explicit to us, twitch.href, like we know that's going to be a link to Twitch. So it helps us keep the return statements cleaner, and also helps us not to sort of repeat ourselves if we don't have to. So I'm just going to do the same thing with that, if I can actually spell, which is, there we go. And then so in the same way, href, and then it's YouTube. Okay, and so that's done. If I save that and we have a look at this, we're going to see these turn purple, and if I clicked each one, it's going to open a link on that platform. So that's cool. So that would take us to Twitch, and that should take us to YouTube, and it does. So that's great. That's all working nicely. I need to do one for Chingu. Right now, just because I haven't set it up, I'm just gonna, I don't know if it's gonna be something I'm gonna use once. I feel like it will be. I don't think I'm gonna be like linking Chingu a whole lot. I've mentioned this countless times in here before, but if anyone that's watching this hasn't heard of Chingu, honestly, go and check it out. You will learn a lot from it if you sort of and if you do a group project, which is basically what it's based around, is what they call voyages, which are just 6-week group projects where you build something. So you decide in the first week what you're going to build, and you spend like the next 5 or so weeks building that as a team, and it's a really great experience. So like I said, I say it almost every on almost every stream. You should check it out, and I'm not paid to say this or anything like that. I'm a member, but I'm a huge fan. So we can just link it to there. And what we can do, actually, I'm not going to say it's external. I'm just going to leave that for now. Cool. So that works. So if you come down here, that all looks fine, right? Cool. All is looking pretty good. Okay, so now it's just the interest section that we need to attend to, and then I think that everything should be like pretty much all done. I think for the about page. So that would be nice to have that done. Then I can kind of maybe talk about testing. I'm not sure if I'll get into it today. I've only got about like 40 minutes left before I have to like head off for dinner and stuff. So we'll see how far we get. So let me just get that back to there, and I'm trying to think about how I want to do this. Okay. So what I want to do is 1, 2. So here, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste that there. I'm going to copy that and paste that there. I think I maybe made some small updates, so I'll just update these anyway. Don't know if they actually need updating, but we'll just copy and paste. Save everywhere. Have a look at the UI. Cool. And then Discord. So I need to also share Discord link. Which again, I should probably have that. I can actually do this quickly, just because, you know, I probably will end up using this in multiple places. Actually, this is the one social link that I forgot about, well, that I didn't think about at least. So what I can do is just go to socials, and I can just add an extra. So what I can do is just probably, can I request it? Yes, I can. So Discord. Got a link there. href is going to equal what I'm about to paste in. Nope, I didn't copy the link. Okay, that should be copied. So Discord link to my server, and then Prettier will correct it anyway. I've just been using double quotes. It's my bad. And then a color. I'm gonna have to go to simple icons for this, just because I can never remember the color. Well, I mean, then again, why would you actually? Like, why would you remember the hex code of anything? Right. So Discord. I can just copy it from here. Oh. Right, that should have it. Cool, and let's just do that and save. Cool. So what I can now do is just go back to that other file. I can close that file now. And where's Discord? Thank you. So I'm going to say it's href, and then it should pick up Discord from here, and it does. So I can say discord.href, and that works too, and that should just take me to my Discord, which it does. Cool, so that works. Oh, I've just closed down my development server, which is great. Bear with me. Where are we? Localhost. That's so weird. Like, cut it off. No, that's fine. I'll just go back and find it. It should be here anyway when I start typing it out. There you go. Cool. So, yeah, I think things are looking all right. We can kind of just, yeah, we can A/B it and have a look at. But I mean, yeah, I'm quite happy with this generally. We can even, if we want as well, like go into the prototype view and just have a look at like what this looks like. Full screen. It's a pretty good way to compare. Okay, so this is mobile. That's not what we want. We can just change the prototype settings if we want, and we can change the starting frame as well. So I'm going to want about desktop. I'm going to want to change that to presentation, no, custom size. I'm just going to use my desktop size, which is 1920 by 1080. Excuse me. Yeah, we've create a background as well, so it should look okay. For some reason it's to the, is that right? No, I think that's okay. Anyway, this is what we're looking like right now. Yeah, I think it's gone a bit weird. Don't know why that is, but we get the gist. So that's what it should look like, and then this is what it does look like. So I think we've done all right. I think it looks all right. No, I'm quite happy with it. At least for an MVP anyway. You know, like I said earlier on in this, the idea is just to kind of get the information in there, get the most basic version as possible. Yes, I know it still like looks quite plain and a bit boring. But I quite like the minimal style. But I think, you know, as time goes on, I'm going to be adding things to this gradually. Like obviously we have this on this page, which is probably like the main attraction of the whole site, is this little hero image, which obviously isn't doing anything right now, but I'm going to be using frame of motion to animate this, but obviously also creating the option for like someone to stop the animation or to have it working with used reduce motion hook. Is it a hook? I don't know. Or at least I think when you use it in frame of motion, it's a hook. Obviously, I think it's a media query in actual CSS. But yeah, we'll be doing that as well. Probably next week is the aim. But by the end of this week, the aim is to have got everything sort of done. So I think Friday, I'm going to aim to finish things off. I think I might as well try and test as well. Won't become famous? Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't mind becoming famous. No, I'm joking. I don't think I'd handle fame well. Anyway, I know that's like a bot thing. I thought my bot would catch that, but obviously they haven't. That's cool. Gone. So, yeah. That's the about page pretty much done. Oh, we need to add some text here, actually. That's what I forgot. I knew I was forgetting something. So, here's what we can do. Let's... Right. I just wanted to get a bit of context. Right. So let me find interest. No, I want to find tools and technologies or skills. Even I should probably change that to tools and tool, which I will do, but not right now. Not right now. Okay. So what I essentially want is just like a text. I'm just trying to find out like what's the spacing on this. So that spacing is still the same. Oh, and the spacing is the same here. Right, I see. Okay, so if we're following the design, then we're going to get something that looks like that. And if we space this out a bit more, it's going to like go all the way to the end. So what we can do, like I've done for the other ones, is just wrap this in a container, which we'll happen to call a chakra container because we have another container that I created prior to this, which might not make a lot of sense. We don't want to call it container though. We wanted to call it chakra container. That's my bad. Okay. I just want to make sure it has a padding of 0 because it was doing some weird stuff earlier with padding. And you can see that now kind of comes in a bit, which is nice. Oh, and we might also just visually, for a bit more visual alignment, just to text align that center. Just doesn't make a whole deal of a difference, but I think it just looks that bit nicer. And we've got no links in there, so that's great. And now, yeah, we've got this section that looks kind of like this section. So that's nice. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm happy to kind of just leave that there for, well, in terms of the about page. So I'm happy to kind of commit these changes and push those to our development branch. We're moving that step closer to kind of pushing this all to production and have this on my on the actual site, which is live, for anyone that might be watching this and wondering. So gregoggan.com, it is live. We've just got all of our placeholder stuff that we made like the other week, I think it was. So once all this stuff's pushed up, we'll have all the newest changes, which will be great. But before that, I do want to try and like get things tested. And yeah, like I said, just have things up to that MVP status. So the homepage is kind of done to a point, which I'm happy with. I'm still deliberating on whether I'm going to include blog posts in it. I think for now, I might still keep it as like a feature to add later, just because I'm going to have to get my head around how to configure the MDX thing. I've decided to go with MDX Bundler, which is Kenzie Dodd's, which is his tool that he created, which seems really promising, actually. It looks really cool. I've read quite a bit about it, so I think I'm going to use that. But yeah, there's just a whole bunch of things to think about there in terms of like the layout of the blog and actually having some blogs to display. So I need to write a bit more as well. Obviously, I'll have a couple to kind of get started, which I'm trying to finish off right now. But like I said, I think that's something maybe just to keep for later, because I don't want to have these features that will slow me down. So I'm just going to keep that for after things are done. We've got the about page. Projects page, again, I've been sort of deliberating on whether I will end up adding those projects in. Like we've obviously got the featured projects right now. Like even some of these are subject to change. I'm probably not going to have this portfolio v2 on here. I'm going to swap that out with like another project, but it's just a case of getting those projects like done a bit more to like a point where I'm happy to show them, because there's just bits that need doing that, you know, it's just really tedious. So yeah, we'll see how things go and kind of just play it by ear, I think. I was wondering what happened there. Like somehow this like that looks a lot better. I was wondering what happened there with the prototype. That would think fix up things now, I think. Cool. So we're done. And so the idea now, when thinking about testing, is like, okay, what to test. So I've been reading up on this like a lot, just trying to like become clear on what to test and like knowing what tool to use for that test, and for like the context of that, like what are we testing, why are we testing it, and what approach are we using. And as I mentioned before, I realized that like testing the project cards wouldn't really give me like a whole lot of value, or like it isn't confidence that I need, because like when this compiles, it's not really fetching data from anywhere other than this like static file that I have. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but like I just don't feel that that's the place to start in terms of like importance, because obviously we're going off the idea of return of investment, of like what's the most important feature, what would be the worst thing to break, that kind of idea. And when looking at this currently, what would be the worst thing to break, in terms of functionality, it would be this newsletter component, and this is what I've been thinking about recently. So basically what's happening here in this tiny little, well, it's not really tiny, but like in this little component, is that when a user goes to sign in, so I'm just going to sign in with a random email I have. Once I hit the subscribe button, it basically fires off a post request to my own API endpoint through in Next.js, which is calling to the button down endpoint, which is the service that I use for my newsletter. And what that's doing is that if it's a new email and everything's successful, it will add that person's email. It won't add it straight to the list. It will basically send them an email checking, to confirm. But basically, things are successful. If they are successful, then we need a way to relay that back to the user so they know that they've subscribed, right? So that they're not just left in the dark and wondering, like, did I subscribe? Did I not? And what we do is that we get this information back. That if it's successful, then we excuse me, I've got something wrong. If it's successful, then we display a message to the user to say, you're all signed up, or something along those lines. And then if there's an error, and more importantly, if there's an error, we can relay that back to the user and say, oh, something's gone wrong. If there's something in specific that's gone wrong, then we just rely on the error message from the response we get. Otherwise, we have our own, which suggests that the person's already subscribed, basically, which is usually it's more than often the case. It will be the case here. So if I hit subscribe, it's going to load for a second, call the API, and then it's going to come back saying you've already subscribed, because I already have. So obviously that functionality works as far as we're concerned. But the whole idea is to create this safety net around it, so that in future, if things need to, maybe I'm refactoring this component, changing some things around. Obviously, the idea is that our tests should help us to refactor, change the implementation without changing the behavior, basically. And that's the confidence it can give us here. And this is an important one, because if something's not working with this, then obviously I'm potentially missing out on people subscribing to my newsletter. And obviously right now I'm still kind of working that whole side of things out. But once it gets later down the line, obviously there's going to be value that's built, through that. And, you aren't going to really want to be missing out on those subscriptions because, you didn't test the component. So I think this would probably be a good place to start. And I think it would make sense to actually start with this component. I did initially think about actually just putting this into a full page integration test with let's say the home page, because this is the only place it exists right now. But actually, I'm considering obviously having this exist elsewhere, potentially just in the footer. So that would be on every page. So we'd get a lot more value out of that. And because this component exists, the component itself, the actual newsletter card, it is completely isolated in that sense. We could have this on any page and we would still get the same exact functionality. So in that sense, it's like completely isolated from the rest of the UI, which makes it like easier to test its own functionality. So that's why, yeah, for me, it kind of makes sense to actually split this up a bit. And what I mean by that, I'll show the file, is that in this newsletter card, so this is what I've got at the moment right now, which obviously, like when I was first writing it, it felt fine. Sorry, that's the wrong thing. Okay, I'm definitely not using the right shortcut to get rid of my terminal. That's fine. I'm just going to put it down a bit. So here we've got this newsletter card. So this is the entire component. We haven't got any other, well, we've got some smaller components on this page, which is just literally the error and success messages, which I'd probably just at some point maybe move into their own component files, because, you know, it's quite likely that they're going to be needed in other places perhaps as this grows out. So it would make sense to just allow these to have their own space in the file system. But again, that will be on like the refactor phase when I come back to adding things to this project. But right now, this is what our newsletter card is looking like. So in this card, we are setting up all the state we're going to need to like receive that error message and like do things depending on whether we get an error message or whether we're getting a success. Like that's all set up within this component. Like it's all contained, like the UI as well. It's all contained within this one component, which is obviously fine. That's fine. That's, you know, that's one way to do things. But as like far as things go with testing, and also with Storybook actually, because I'm also using Storybook too, it's kind of made things a bit tricky in terms of how we're like working with the props, especially with Storybook. And I'll actually just maybe demonstrate this. I'll just run Storybook, but in the meanwhile, we'll have a look at the file. So what's happening essentially is that we've got this handle submit function, which is just the main, this is our main like functionality here. Like without that, this is just like essentially a dumb component that just renders like UI, right? And basically, like once we hit subscribe, right? So we've wrapped all of this in a form so that you know, we can submit that. Also, you know, we keep it accessible too. And once we submit, we have this function that handles that submit. Obviously do the standard prevent default to stop the page from reloading. And then we're just setting some state. So we're setting the form into a loading state, which can help us with, yeah, basically just setting some like loading spinners and stuff like that. And then we're doing like the fetching, right? And then, so we're fetching some data from that endpoint. Sorry, not fetching, we're sending data to the endpoint. So what we're sending, so as you can see here, we're sending the email field. So we're sending that email to the subscribe endpoint, which is sending it to the button down endpoint, so that, you know, we can have that email in our mailing list. But like I said, I'm using like the sort of two-factor. It's not two-factor authentication. What's the name for it? I think it's like the two-step verification, that kind of thing. Basically just adding another layer for someone to explicitly agree that they want to join the list. So in this case, it would add it, but for them to like, it wouldn't put it on the mailing list yet. But in other cases, obviously that would be the case. So once that's done, we then, you know, have this, we create this destructured variable, which takes the error from, or any error that we might get from our response. And if there is an error, then we set that state for our component to give the user the feedback. And then if we have no error, then it just assumes that everything is all cool, it's all groovy, and we get the success message. Sorry, the success state with the success message, basically. So that's what's happening in this component. But the way I've been kind of thinking about it is that, well, we could actually just maybe abstract all of this logic out into a component that wraps around our newsletter card called subscribe, right? Because that's the action that's been taken. And what that allows us to have is that this newsletter stays as this like component that doesn't really know anything about like fetching stuff. All it knows is the data that it's rendering out. Why that makes it kind of easier for us is that we can then more easily play with these states in Storybook. So I think Storybook should have opened up, but it's okay. I think we've had an error. Yes, we did. Okay, I think I know why. I think for some reason, okay, error in can't resolve. Right. Oh, my bad. I think. Let's have a look here. Just trying to think of why. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to run. Yarn. It doesn't always work, but sometimes, like, for some reason, you just have to install things again, get Storybook running. Okay. Right. Oh, just run that, didn't I? Oh, that's what we want. Let's see if it will build this time for us. No. Doesn't want to build, okay. Can't seem to resolve stories. Right, I think, I'm just trying to figure out, because I did delete the main stories folder, which I'm sure is fine to do that, like, definitely. What I'm going to do is this. All right, so we're not even going to look for stories there. What I just want to do is look for it in the components folder, because that's the only place we have it. And for me, that's where I find it easiest to have them. So we'll try and see if this works. Okay, yeah, it builds this time. So we just had to get rid of those paths because I think it was looking for stories in those directories and wasn't finding them. But this is like what we've got so far. So for example, this is our newsletter card. And for anyone that's not familiar with Storybook, it's a really great tool for building out UIs and building out components from their like atomic states, but completely in isolation from the rest of the UI. So this component right now doesn't know about any like API. It's not tied to anything. Basically, that's the kind of idea. Obviously, we can do some stuff here. Like that's just going to load. It's just going to keep loading. Because like I said, like this isn't sending off any requests or anything like that. This is like kind of in its own separate environment. You can kind of think of it in that way. But why this is really handy is that it allows us to look at like every possible state that any component can take on. So for example, with this newsletter, right, we're going to have this default state, like what it's going to look like when you load up the site. And this is what it's going to look like, right? So we've got like the heading, we've got the description, we've got this input with the placeholder text, and then this subscribe button. And then, so that's like one story, right? That's like, this is one like sort of state that it has. And then another state is like when someone fills it in. So when someone starts typing, this is the next state. So now we can see that the text has changed color because obviously that this is what it's looking like when it's filled in. And so obviously it's only a slight difference, but it's very handy just to see, you know, okay, cool. So that's how that's working. And where this can start to get more powerful is that we can start to mess with things like loading states. And so I've got this loading state in here now. So what's really nice about this is that obviously like there's no requests being sent or anything like that. We're just viewing what the component would look like if we were sending a request and like waiting for that to come back. So that's the kind of power of Storybook, is that you can have all of these different states. And that's why they call each of these, so each one of these things that we're seeing here, they're called stories. And it's basically telling the story of that component from like when it's in its default state to being filled in, to loading, and then to being valid. So let's say that we get a success message back from the, well, we don't get a success message back from the API, but if we don't get an error, we can assume that everything is fine and it's gone all well and that we're on the mailing list. And then on the opposite, or on the flip side, what we do get is an error object, and if there is an error, then it will send this message, you've already subscribed. Otherwise, if that's not the case, it will send the message from the response object. So this is kind of like the really nice thing that like Storybook offers, in my opinion. It's just that you can just view your components in all of its like possible states, without having to have it like coupled with data first. So like you don't have to set it up with an API and stuff like that. You can actually just configure it yourself. You also have access to these controls. Can I make that bigger? You have access to these controls, so we can just switch it like valid, true or false. So you don't even have to switch stories at points if you don't want to. So you can set things to true or false, like loading true, loading false. So you have a lot of like flexibility. And another place where you have a lot of flexibility as well is with add-ons. And I haven't really like played around with these too much. I'm hoping to get more into them soon. But the only one I've really sort of used is the accessibility add-on, which kind of just shows you the passes, the violations, and any sort of incomplete, which I'm guessing incomplete is probably because basically it uses Axe under the hood. And if we go into the dev tools, I've got the Axe dev tools installed. It basically just uses like the same engine that runs this right here, which shows you any accessibility violations, and essentially yeah, it's running a similar thing. So I'm guessing that like the incomplete things would be like maybe things that are like need review basically. But you can see here like we're getting passes on like each thing. So like as you change components, it will update. So you can see we've got one incomplete thing here. So this is something that like we might need to consider. It's, you know, there isn't any proof around it yet that it is explicitly inaccessible. So you can see here we've got a violation now. So this is where this like this add-on really shines, is that it actually shows us like what the thing is. So it tells us SVG elements with an image, a role of image, have alt text. I'm getting around to this, but yeah, this is something that I've known about, so I will get this fixed. But it's really nice that it tells us like what it is. But what's even better is that it even gives us a link to like some like documentation. So if I click more info, it's going to take us to an actual like article where you know, it tells you what the problem is, how to fix it. So they do a lot for you to kind of help you like resolve these problems, and it helps you to kind of do it in a way that's quick as well, and it doesn't interrupt with your workflow too much. So yeah, anyone that you know is using Storybook and hasn't known about that add-on, or you know you're sort of interested in using Storybook, definitely consider using that add-on as a way to kind of bake accessibility into the like component creation process basically. So it's really nice for that. And yeah, you can literally have it on, so it's accessible across all of your components, and you can kind of build. And obviously, like, it's probably worth noting as well that like even if you're like, what component was it on? Yeah, on this one, like even if we're getting like 18 parcels or like all of our things are all green, that's not to say like if you get that across all components, it isn't to say that your site is, you know, 100% accessible, because there are just some like things like manual testing that you can't, there's some tests that you can't do that software still can't check for to ensure that your site is accessible. So obviously it is just a tool, just like everything else, and it should be regarded as such and not like, you know, this like one catch-all solution. But it is very helpful, especially in catching like low-hanging fruit, right? Stuff like making sure elements have discernible text, making sure that you've got color contrast. What else? yeah, just very basic things like that are quite easily fixable, if that makes sense. So that's kind of, yeah, just a general overview of like how I've been using Storybook. And as like we continue to go out, so yeah, this is just some inputs as well, just some different states. So a default, a disabled state, invalid, like a flushed input, all kinds of things that you can do with your components. And I'm hoping to keep on adding as the UI continues to grow. I'll be adding components in here. Excuse me. And I'm actually also considering using this, like integrating this completely with Jest. So Storybook actually, like yesterday, released, let me see if I can find it. So they released this integration, like they've already had integration with Jest through Story Shots, which is like a way to take snapshots of your stories, which I only got started using that on this project, which I haven't really delved much more into it. But let's have a look. Storybook testing with Jest. I think it's maybe on here. Yeah, I mean, it's somewhere here. I'll probably pop the link in the notes, in the description when I find it. But it's a really looks like a really helpful tool. It just allows you to bring and reuse your stories in like unit tests, which can be really helpful, especially when we're talking about like testing these like little sort of UI like atomic units in isolation. So, you know, let's say you've got like a button or whatever element it is. And the way I like to think about this as well is sort of bringing accessibility into that sort of field of view, because, you know, if there's certain things that you can run across these components to like check them, right, then, you know, you can put certain accessibility parameters like, you know, should always have focus, you know, this, I'm just trying to think, you know, should have alt text, should have this, should have that, like whatever it is, we can sort of bake that into the test so that if like at any point, let's say someone's adding a feature and these things haven't been accounted for, like the test will break. And in this way, like you can bring a bit more of like a strictness to having an accessible site, depending on like how important that is for you. I know for me, like it's something that I like to regard quite highly when I'm building, so it would make sense for me to actually have these kind of tests. But yeah, you know, it's to each their own, you know, with these solutions. But it does seem like, you know, it could be a really nice feature. So I'm going to be potentially looking at doing that in this project as well. So that's kind of mostly kind of everything I wanted to run through. So yeah, like I said, with testing, I'm going to be, I've been rethinking things. I'm going to get that, this like component cleaned up, and I think I will separate out a bit of this logic and like how things are interacting with each other, just so that we can have a bit more ease with like managing like testing the component, and also like integrating with Storybook. Because yeah, what I've had to do in Storybook in order to see the valid and invalid states is that I've had to just create these like separate components here, which it doesn't really feel that great, because it doesn't, like, this has nothing to do with the component we're seeing on the screen, and I'd rather not have this extra kind of logic in here just for the use case of Storybook. Basically, it's better to have it so that Storybook can just pick up the props that it needs to, and configure those stories like based on that, rather than us having to manually do that. Just because, yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure. Like, I just have a little hunch that it could potentially cause problems as well. So, like with like showing, yeah, with like doubling up on showing like this message, because obviously we're already showing it here, but like based on a condition. So, yeah, that's kind of my hindrance towards like wanting to carry on doing it this way. So that's what I'm going to be working on. That's the first thing I'm going to be working on. I'm also, like I said, going to be testing this component as well. I'm also writing a test. Going to be writing a test. It's just at the page level, really. For people, really better to visually show this. Yeah, just on the page level for these two components. So it's just to assert that we are only rendering 2 elements here for the feature projects, because those 2 projects basically, obviously it's its own component as a project card, but the data that it's pulling in from a different file, and it's just being mapped over. So similar to what we were doing with tools, we have this projects folder which has all of the data that we need for each project, and we have this I don't have it on here. Oh, that's okay. I know why that is. No, that's fine. So we actually, I might as well just do it now. We're gonna have this feature. Can't spell that properly. This feature prop, which will evaluate to either true or false. Obviously, these are going to be true because we both want them to be shown on the homepage. But essentially, at any point, only 2 of these should be true. So this just stops us from showing more projects than like we need, or more projects than I'd want to. I just want to have 2 as a maximum, so we can assert that and just check that, you know, only 2 things are being rendered out. So I'm going to just be writing a very small test for that, and then we'll be looking at testing this, potentially looking at mocks as well. I haven't got much experience there, so I'm going to have to do a bit more reading and looking at tutorials and such, but that's what I'll be working on. And then also cleaning up the code a little bit and getting ready to like push this thing to production basically, because I think we're almost there. So I'm going to try and get some projects in there and get them on this project page, I think is what I'll also be doing. So all of this I'm going to aim to have done by the end of the week. And yeah, so by the end of the week, 100%, we would have definitely got everything done, and have all of this on the actual domain basically. So that will be exciting stuff. But for now, I'm going to leave it there. And yeah, for anyone that's joined, and anyone that's yet to kind of watch this, thank you for joining, thank you for watching. And I shall be back again probably on Friday, looking at just updating on anything that needs to be updated basically. So and if I haven't got around to testing, then we'll be looking at testing then, and maybe adding just the last kind of final bits to this. I suppose we can call it an MVP. So that's kind of the idea. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there, and we'll hopefully catch people in the stream on Friday. Sweet. Take care, guys. Peace out.